All right. I think things are going now. I think we're live. Let's get the disclaimers out of the way, jump right into it. This is a weekly live broadcast. Generally speaking, 8 o'clock right now is when we're doing it. 8 o'clock Central Time, Thursday evenings. This is where I'm at on this channel doing a live broadcast. I do my best to respond to all the chat that comes in during the broadcast itself. This is really the best place to get your questions answered, get a hold of me, interact with me if you want to interact with me. This is really the best time to do that, the best place and time. I've just had a lot going on and haven't been real responsive in the comments lately. That kind of seems to be a reoccurring theme, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to get better, but it's just tough. But anyway, that's not the point of this. So we don't have a topic planned out. This is just an Ask Me Anything session. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, and just keep it family friendly. Be polite. Don't start cussing at us or anything like that. We'll have to kick you out, but that's about it as far as the rules go. We can disagree. We can talk about, I guess, fairly controversial things. But again, we just want to keep it family friendly, if that makes sense. So, all right. Hey, there's Verna. First one here, 15 minutes early. Got the first comment in. Thank you for joining. Appreciate that. And we got Joy from Western Oregon. Sujak from Indiana. Good to see you guys. S.O. Swanson's here from Mississippi. And says greetings to his quail family. So greetings to you too. I think that includes everybody, doesn't it? Don from South Central Illinois. Good to see you. Where are we at here? Yeah, talking about the live broadcast I was on with Verna the other day on her channel, Saturday morning. Dawn got her like in on number 8. Okay, I appreciate that. I'm trying to catch up here. You guys were talking to each other, which is fine with me. So if I missed something that was for me in that, let me know. But everybody talking to each other, I kind of skip over those. S.O. Swanson says, I told my boss they didn't have to give me the time off, but I won't be at work, so they have time to adjust their schedules. That's for QuailCon, I believe, is what you're talking about. Yep, sounds good. Verna's got to go start another pot of coffee. Hey, yeah, good to see you. Let's see. Jesse Mills is here. Good evening, Jesse. Good to see you. What else we got here? And Joshua Davis says, hey, how you doing, Chris? I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Hopefully you're doing well, too. This is, right now I'm working until 7 o'clock. I get home about 7:30, and then got to jump on here at 8 o'clock. So it's a little bit rushed, but it could be a lot worse. At least I can still make the broadcast. Sujak says, Chris, do you withhold food from the meat rabbits a day prior to processing them? I don't bother with doing that with the rabbits or with the quail, either one. Somebody asked the same thing about quail last week. I don't bother doing it. It's probably not terrible practice, but I just don't bother doing it. I've never really found any kind of adverse effects from, not withholding the food, so I don't. Bradley James, hello to you. Good to see you. And Andy Rabbit's here too. Good to see you. Yeah, it says going to lurk tonight, just going to listen to the show. Well, you're welcome to listen, interact, whatever you want to do. It's perfectly okay with me. Oh my goodness, I scrolled too far, I think. Where was I? There we go. Found out where I was. Tallahatchie Two Step says 4 weeks today with hatched Coturnix. Well, good. Congratulations. 4 weeks ago, you got them to hatch out, I guess. So congratulations on your hatch. Hopefully it went well. Glad things are going well. We got Tony from Toronto. Good to see you. Curtis. Hey, Curtis, how are you? I can't get, something's going on here with my mouse. Wait, hang on just 1 second. Oh, I missed one. Short Pickens Quail says, hey, Chris and all. Nikki James from Missouri. Another Show Me Stater here. Good to see you. All right. So Curtis says, hey, Chris and all. I missed the last week's live. Though that's all right. We don't keep attendance here, so you don't have to tell us you missed it or not. We wouldn't have even, didn't notice I didn't see you here last week because I think I was talking about you hatching out quail for you. But other than that, we wouldn't have noticed. Probably. That sounds rude, doesn't it? I don't mean it in a rude way. But I'm glad you're here tonight. Good to see you. Who's that? Bass. Is that Bass or Bass? Says watching from Texas. Well, I don't know what part of Texas. I used to live in Texas. Hey, there's Jupiter. We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Says, good evening. Hope you're doing well. I am so far. Joshua says, how big are your chicks now? You're talking about the chickens, I'm assuming. They're, they're about a little over 3 weeks old, so not great big, but I can't get rid of these. Sorry, I'm having issues with my cursor working tonight for some reason. Anyway, highlighting. I always highlight the comments so I know where I'm at, and it's not wanting to highlight very well. But anyway, so how big are the chickens? They're not super big right now. They're only a little over 3 weeks old. So they're, I don't know. How big do you say? Like this big around, maybe? I don't know how well that describes it. I haven't weighed them or anything like that, but they're not quite Cornish hen size yet, but getting close to that. S.O. Swanson says it's hard to keep track of all your fans for who's here and not. Yeah, it is hard to keep track of who's here and who's not. Sometimes things, jump out at me, but yeah, I don't always, I can't keep track of it. No way. Sujak says, we keep super secret, double secret attendance. You do, huh? Yeah. Andy says weeks are long, we forget. Yeah, it's hard to remember who was here on each kind of each weekly broadcast. And a lot of times I'll get people that will, like at QuailCon, for example, I'll run into you guys and you'll say, hey, I'm such and such from your live broadcast. I haven't been there in a while, and I'm like running through like, what did we talk about last? I mean, the name sounds familiar, the username sounds familiar, but I can't put it in context with what we talked about. It's very hard for me to keep that stuff straight. Bass says Midland, Texas. Well, I was in Nacogdoches. I'm not sure where Midland is, but I believe it's way more. Well, it's got to be more west, right? Let me look it up real quick. Midland, Texas. It is. Yeah, that's a long way from where I was at. It's actually I'm probably closer. Well, maybe not much, but almost, yeah. Almost closer to where I lived in Texas than you are to where I lived in Texas. And I'm not in Texas anymore. I'm in Missouri. Jupiter says, what happened if an incubator gets a little too hot early in the process? It could, let's see what Verna says. Depends on what you call a little too hot. Well, it does depend a little bit about that, but yeah, it does depend on a little too hot and how long it was that hot and, all those good things. But, what I would say is just, unless you got other eggs that for sure are good and you want to go ahead and just scrap the, not even take a chance and put the other eggs in, which I don't know whether you should do that or not. I'd go ahead and incubate them out and see how they're doing. If it got a little too hot, if we're talking, 101, 102 degrees and it was that way for an hour, well, that's probably not a big deal. If it got up to 115, 120 degrees, that's a bigger deal. If it was at 105 degrees for 2 or 3 days, that's a bigger deal. So it's hard to say just based on what you described and how much it's going to affect them. But I would go ahead and try to incubate them out and see how they do. You'll probably still get a pretty decent amount that'll hatch. Jay Morris says about 90 quail in the incubator, trying some pearls too. Well, good luck with your hatch. I hope it goes well. 90 is a pretty good amount. Curtis says release that wild kit today, about 20 days old. I'm surprised. I remember talking about that now. It took me a second, but I'm really surprised you got it to live that long. It's rare that wild rabbits will live in captivity at all. Ignacio from Kentucky, good to see you. Joshua says, let's see, we have another fox, and he got our last chicken. Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Foxes can be devastating on chickens and quail for that matter. I had a problem with the fox getting into not getting into the hutch, but grabbing the feet at the bottom. He was grabbing their feet through the wire and pulling their legs off through the bottom of the cage. I ended up stringing a piece of electric wire around it. That took care of it. He hasn't been back since. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That is incredibly frustrating. Let's see. Jesse wants to know, Andy wants to know from Andy, are you going to have a Havana buck available at QuailCon this time? Or at QuailCon time? And Andy Rabbit says, my dad is saying, I slept since then. Oh, has a saying, I slept since then. That's why you forget things. Okay, yeah, I get it. I'm with you on that. Where we at here? Cody. Darn it. This thing is really acting up weird. Okay, Cody says, hey, love the channel. I'm new to raising quail. What's the best way of removing manure balls from the chicks' feet? Okay, so there's there's a little bit more to this, isn't it? It says I'm doing an absolute best to keep up with the brooder cleaner. I do it twice a day, but all my chicks have a little balls of manure around the ends of their toes. How do I solve this problem? Interesting. How old are your chicks, I guess would be the question. I usually don't have that problem at all with quail in the brooder, but even if you're cleaning twice a day, there's still going to be a lot of manure buildup, especially if you have a lot of chicks. So now there's a couple of things you can do. Depending on how bad it is, you may just not even worry about it. It'll probably clean up on its own as you get them off of the solid floor of the brooder onto some wire where the droppings will fall through and all that kind of stuff. You can try to soak their feet in like an Epsom salt bath for a little while, soften that up, and it'll come off. That seems like a lot of work to do with every single chick in there. Depending on how old your birds are, get them on some wire. Put a wire floor in the bottom of your brooder, raise it up just a little bit so the manure falls through and doesn't collect on their feet. You can do that at about, I'd say probably 4 or 5 days old. For the first 3 or 4 days, keep them on even if you have a wire floor in there, just lay some blue shop towels down, paper towels, and keep them on that for about 2 or 3 days, and then remove it and let them walk on the wire, and they should be fine. I don't know if that got your question answered. Hopefully that did. Let me know if there's more to it than that, or if you need more explanation or want to talk about it more. In the Woods says, first stream, I always fall asleep. Well, hey, thanks for making it. Hopefully you're still awake, because I know it takes me a little time to get to your comments. You probably asked that several minutes ago. or stated that several minutes ago. S.O. Swanson says, how old are they, Cody? Yeah, that's kind of was my question too. So hopefully Andy's seeing Jesse. Yep. Okay, she sees him. Good. Sujek says, how are you doing with the silver foxes? Are they getting up to butcher weight? They're not quite there yet. These are growing out a little bit slower than some of my other rabbits have, but they're growing. They're doing great. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not quite up to processing weight yet. They're probably, let's see, my blue doe, her babies are growing out a little bit faster than my black doe. I would say the black doe's babies are probably around the 3-pound mark, maybe. And the blue one's probably 3.5. So, they got a little ways to go. It's probably going to take a full 12 weeks from, old before they're ready to process. But so far they're doing great. They're super easy to handle, just very attentive. I mean, just, they don't mind attention at all. They like to be petted. They don't really much care to be picked up, but they're still pretty easy to handle. So there was a little bit of a trade-off there. Even the does are incredibly easy to manage too. They just, you can put your hands in there and just pet them. They don't care. They're just completely comfortable around you. Much, much different than what I usually used to having with New Zealand white does, who tend to be a little bit crazy and neurotic. Cody says they're 10 to 12 days old. Okay, so if you're looking at 12 days old, I mean, you're going on 2 weeks old. Chances are you can, give them maybe another 2-3 days. If you haven't got them off the heat lamp, start weaning them off that, get rid of it. And then you can put them outside. In the summertime, I put my babies outside at about 2 weeks old. But that's when the nighttime temperatures aren't getting down below like the high 60s. And they do just fine. So that would be my suggestion. SO's got a good question for you too, Cody. He wants to know, what bedding are you using? And In the Woods says a cotton ball with warm water. So there you go. You could do that too. Joy says, I spooked a young bobcat away from my chicken pen on Tuesday. Oh yeah. Bobcats can be pretty bad predators too. Cody says we're using puppy pads. Boy, that's got to be expensive. I don't know that there's any wrong. Jay Moore says puppy pads clean up easy. Yeah. I guess they probably do. I use blue shop towels is what I use in the floor of my brooder. S.O. Swanson says at 12 days old, you can put them on wire. If you want to put in a false floor, you can also use pine shavings it'll absorb the poop. No place for the poop to go on the puppy pads. Well, that's a thought too. But yeah, I agree. You can put them on wire at this point. Don says my chicks are on blue paper towels, 2 days, maybe 3, and then on corncob bedding No poopy feet on the corn cob litter. Yeah, sand would work as well. It's a little bit harder to clean up, but it works. I mean, and you probably don't need to clean it up until they're out of the brooder, depending on, I mean, as long as you have a fairly decent layer of it and not just a fine layer. Jay Moore says, I go through a lot of wee pads. Yeah, I can imagine that would get expensive pretty quick. JJ Willow says, I am way late. Hi, all. That's okay. Again, we don't take attendance. You're perfectly fine. Come in whenever you want. Leave whenever you want. It's all good. But hello to you. I'm glad you made it. Excuse me. Joshua says, you should do a video on butchering your rabbits when they are ready. I have done a couple of videos on that, but yeah, I could do it again. I put out a few. I put out one video years ago on how to process a rabbit, and I showed everything, like from dispatching the rabbit to actually, processing. Well, it got flagged and marked as adult content and all kinds of things. YouTube does not like to show the dispatching of an animal, does not like you to show that. So the other videos I've done on it is after it's dispatched, how to process it after that point. But I've done it before. I can do it again. Maybe I will. We'll see. Let's see. We got Jupiter here, says, hey, Chris, Ignacio from Kentucky is my husband. We are each watching on our phones. Oh, awesome. Got both of you guys watching. I didn't even know that. In fact, Jupiter, I didn't know if you were male or female. So I'm sure you've told me, but I didn't even know. And I don't, never mind. JJ Willow says, where do you get corncob bedding? You should be able to pick that up at probably like farm supply, pet stores, that kind of stuff. I would think you might even be able to get it from, I don't know if there's a difference, but like I buy corncob, I think it's corncob grit for my reloader for the brass cleaner. It's like a vibrating brass cleaner. So you could look at like, I think it's just corn cobs. I mean, that might work. Corncob bedding. I don't know. That would be like through a reloading supplier or something like that. But you could use sand. Just get play sand. That would work too, probably. Although I would be a little bit, I mean, it's not a problem if they ingest a little bit of sand, but I might be a little bit worried that young quail would ingest too much of it, maybe. I don't know if that'd be a problem or not. I don't think it would be, but that would be the only concern. And Dawn says Rural King, or what is that? Butch Height? I don't know what that is. I guess it's a farm supply store for corncob bedding. There's two of them. Yep. Yeah, pet stores, you should carry it too. You're right, Andy. JJ says, thank you, Don. I'll give it a try. Okay. Sujek says, if you do a butcher video, can you talk about dispatching methods? Yep, I have talked about that before. I can do it again. So when they get up to ready to process, maybe I'll shoot some video. It sounds like there's some interest in that. Talk about processes for dispatching. I've tried a couple of different processes. There are different ways of dispatching the rabbits. Well, what I use now is like what they commonly refer to as the broomstick method. That's primarily what I use. But we can discuss all that on video whenever it comes time. Unless you want to talk about it right now. If you do, we'll talk about it right now. You just let me know. Curtis is getting ready to process 30 quail. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, that's a lot, but it's not too bad. Hey, there's Blessed with Pets. Good to see you. In the Woods says, can I put just one of my 3-week-old chicks in with my adult hens? I've never tried to move one baby, only the hatch together. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever tried to put just one in either, but I don't think it would matter. I don't see why it would. So I'd say do it. I think it'll be work just fine. I wouldn't let it get too much older before moving it in there. My experience is when you move young birds in, I've done pretty small batches, but never just one by itself. But they seem to accept them no matter what. I've never had an issue with them being aggressive with young birds. Now, if they're over about 4 or 5 weeks old, that's a little bit different. They may want to start, the roosters may want to start breeding with them. They're seeing them as a moving in on their territory. They could get a little bit aggressive with them. But at 3 weeks old, I've had great luck with that. Andy Rabbit says Harbor Freight has the corn cob for the blasters. The blasters, huh? I guess it'd be like a sandblaster type thing. Interesting. Don says, Andy Rabbit, wow, really Harbor Freight. I'll have to check it out and see if it's the same thing and cheaper. I pay $6.98 for 30 pounds. That seems pretty cheap, so I don't know if you'll get it much cheaper. So JJ goes to all those places at least once a month. I'll have to keep an eye out. Let's see. Short Pickens Quail says Rural King sells corn cob bedding. I don't know if Tractor Supply does or not. We've got around here. We've got a couple of different. We don't have a Rural King. We have in the city of Joplin itself, we have a Tractor Supply. We have pretty close by. It's not actually in Joplin. We have an Outwoods. They might sell it. They probably do, I would guess. We've got Sutherland's, which is more of a Sutherland's is. I mean, they sell some of that kind of stuff, animal feed and stuff, but mostly it's like lumber and plumbing and like a hardware store type thing. Pretty good sized one. JJ says, I feel overwhelmed and excited. One of our friends is going to bring over a bunch of hutches for the quail. If I hatch them, they will buy. Well, good. That sounds exciting for sure. Jasmine Jade, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Jeremy Trimble says, good evening, everyone. Waiting patiently for my first set of 50 eggs to arrive. Got a text saying that they should arrive by 9:30 tonight. Wow, 9:30 at night. That's kind of late for delivery, but hopefully they get there. Good luck with the hatch. I hope it goes well. Don says, I use corncob bedding because it is dust-free and odorless, and I'm allergic to the pine shavings. I could only use pine shavings outside in the manure trays. Well, that makes sense. And just in case, while we're talking about using like pine shavings, corncob bedding, don't use cedar with your birds. It's incredibly bad for your birds. So stay away from cedar. Pine's okay. Corncob shavings or bedding's okay. All that stuff, but don't use pine. Or don't use cedar, excuse me. Don't use cedar. Arlen's Edge says, will you be a guest speaker on this year's QuailCon? Yep, I am speaking at QuailCon this year. I speak at QuailCon every year, but I'm speaking at QuailCon again this year. I'm going to be talking about some of the common problems that quail have and how to resolve them. Or how to deal with them, should say. There's Jeremy from south of Houston, Texas. Boy, there's not much south of Houston, is there? Is that Galveston, maybe? I don't know. JJ Willow, yep, I'm getting a little sick of smelling pine with poo. Yeah, I can imagine. S.O. Swanson says Tractor Supply is $11.99 for 40 pounds of corn cob. So is that, what was the other price we got quoted? $6.99, I think it was, or six something? $6.98 for 30 pounds. So I can't do the math in my head to see if that's any better. So what is that price per pound? And then $11.99 is. No, it's not a better deal. Andy Rabbit says cedar kills. Yep, for sure. JJ Willow says pine is about $5 to $6 per bale. Well, that may be good. Joshua Davis says one of my turkeys died today. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Always sad whenever you have a loss of your animals, no matter what they are. And definitely turkey's a pretty decent investment. So either way, sorry to hear about that. We've been really lucky with these Cornish cross. I'm pretty impressed with this hatchery. Both times I've ordered from them, they sent me an overcount, one extra bird. The first batch, we did lose one in shipment, but the rest of them were fine. This batch, we didn't lose any in shipment. I haven't lost one since. The only reason I lost any out of the last one because a possum got into the brooder and killed them all but two. But none of the problems. I haven't had a single problem with pasty butt or anything. They've all been just incredibly healthy. They're doing just great. I've got them out in the chicken tractor. I moved them out there this last weekend. They've been out there about 3 days now. And, we had some pretty chilly nights down to 58 degrees. They're 3 weeks old. They did fine. Not a problem, one. And everything's going great. Dawn says that it activates pine, I think it is. It activates my asthma. Even outdoors, it almost gets it going when we change manure trays, but it works outside to keep the flies away a day longer. There you go. Jeremy Trimble says Pearland. That's south of Houston. I don't even know where that is. I guess it's south of Houston, so I do know where it is. But S.O. Swanson says Don's price is better. Yeah, you probably figured that out quicker than I did. And White Trim 1 says Tractor Supply in Albuquerque is now selling quail chicks. Interesting. I should check with our local Atwoods. I know there for a while they sell rabbits from time to time, and they had an option where you could sign up and like you could be a breeder for them basically, and it wasn't hard to do. It's just like a local breeder, but it wasn't worth it. They were only selling the rabbits for $10, $15 a piece, and they're kind of like mixed breed rabbits, just whatever. So but maybe could talk them into selling some quail and get into supplying them with quail to sell. That'd give me a revenue stream for them. I don't know what you're saying. Lettle says right now or right now. I don't know what you're asking about. You're got me lost. Blessed with Pets says, okay, Chris, totally random, but I bought pigeons. Do you know anything about them? I bought 4 and I need to build them an outdoor aviary or something with room to add more birds. Well, I don't know a ton. I mean, they're pigeons. I mean, I don't know a ton about them. I don't know what you're going to use them for. Are you going to use them as homing pigeons, racing pigeons? Or are you just going to have them? That would be the questions, I guess. You do want to build them something that if they're going to use them as like a homing pigeon or, where you're going to, take them out, let them go and let them fly back home kind of thing. You don't need a great big aviary. You can get away with, it still needs to have some room where they can get up and down, some perches where they can get on. Look up a couple of like quail. What do they call them? They don't call them hutches. They don't call them coops. They call them, I can't remember. But anyway, look it up, quail housing or whatever, and you'll find some examples of that. It's not, you can get away pretty cheap with that too and pretty minimalistic. So don't go with the, it's just like anything else you do. You look at chicken coops and man, you see some that are like $2,000 chicken coops and you don't have to spend that much money to get it going. You can get away a lot cheaper than that. So there are some pretty simple, effective quail housing or pigeon housing that you can build for them, especially if you're going to be racing them or homing them or any of those kinds of things, because they're going to be getting exercise outside. They don't need a huge area to exercise if you're going to be taking them out and flying them. So anyway, I don't know if that answers any of your questions or not. JJ Willow says, Don, I'm cleaning about trays about every 3 days. How often do you clean trays? Kind of curious. I don't know. I don't use stacking cages. I have outdoor hutches for my quail and I clean up quail droppings out, from underneath once or twice a year. I mean, I don't do it very often at all. I just let it pile up underneath there, especially in the summertime when the black soldier fly larvae move in because they keep it under control pretty well. I usually clean it up, in the fall, maybe once again in the spring, and that's about it. As far as the sandbox inside, because the sandbox inside does get, droppings in it. They spend a lot of time in it. I just use a screen. It's a window screen. It's about this wide. Oh, yay long, about that long. I don't know what it was like. It came in 2 parts, actually. It was made for like putting in a narrow window. I can't remember exactly. There was a reason for maybe it was RVs or something like that. I don't know. But I took it apart. So now I have 2 of them. And I just scoop up the sand and sift it, and the sand falls through, and the droppings stay in the screen, dump it in a bucket. I do that once every month or so. That's about it. S.O. Swanson says, I use Chris's methods of cleaning up quail poop. I don't know which method you're talking about exactly, but Don says, yeah, you aren't raising quail on a carpeted porch, LOL. Yeah, that makes a difference. I agree. Is that Yedel? I don't know how to pronounce your name exactly. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. Says, your rabbit videos help me a lot. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate it. If there's topics you want to see me address on rabbits, let me know. I'll definitely do that. I've been talking about having a hard time coming up with some topics. So always, anytime I post a video, if there's a topic you want to see, post a comment. And I'm not very good at responding to comments right now. I've got too many things going on. I haven't been able to take the time to sit down and just go through them and respond, but I do see them. And I'll get video ideas from them and I'll be happy to address other topics in videos. JJ Willow says, okay, about the same. Every 3 to 4 days, I've been thinking of deep litter under the outdoor hutch, but I wonder about flies. I don't have a huge issue with flies where I live. I mean, we get flies, but it doesn't really seem to matter if there's, that much manure or that much manure. It's the same amount of flies, it seems. But maybe that's just me too. I don't have as big of a problem, I think, as some people do. Joshua says, is silver fox rabbits good for pets and to pick them up? Well, yeah, I would say they probably would make good pets. I don't see why they wouldn't. All my silver foxes are just incredibly easy to deal with. They don't like being picked up so much, but it's just they kind of panic a little bit. If you were to pick them up on a regular basis, they might get used to that. I don't know, because I don't do it. I don't get them out of their cages very often, but they're not hard to handle. And all of them, when I open the cage up, they come right up to the front of the cage, let me scratch their heads, pet them, the bucks, the does, all that. Now, what I'm used to with New Zealand's is it seems like the bucks are generally pretty easy to handle, pretty easy to pet. They don't care. They're all pretty friendly, but the does seem to be a little bit crazy most of the time. They might tolerate a little bit of touching, but you can tell they don't like it. They kind of tense up, and but not these silver foxes. They'll come right up to you, and I'll be petting them a little bit, and then I'll go to mess with their water, and they're nudging my hand like a dog. They are pretty friendly, pretty easy to deal with. S.O. Swanson says, I'm in the South. I have black soldier fly. They compost the poop and eat the pesky fly eggs. Yeah, the black soldier fly do a great job of keeping the flies under control too. You're right. I haven't seen any yet this year, so I'm hoping they get here. But I'm waiting on them. But yeah, they're a blessing for sure to have around. Let's see. Don's talking to JJ Willis, says my cages are on a carpeted and screened porch, so the flies aren't too bad. But on cleaning day, they are all over the screens. I use pine in the outdoor trays. Popcorn sucks outside. I can imagine. Oh, it blows in the wind. That's why. Popcorn blows in the wind real easily, and flies come earlier too. Interesting. JJ says, I like the sand idea too. Got me thinking. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see why sand wouldn't work for your baby. I think we're talking about baby quail again. I don't know what we're talking about anymore exactly with the sand, but yeah. For the adult quail, I have a permanent sandbox in there. They love it. They lay most of their eggs in there. The eggs come out super clean. It's the way to go. It's way better than trying to, mine's a permanent, like I said, it's just got a solid bottom on it and a 2x4 on side, and that holds all the sand in. Now in the past, I tried putting in containers with sand in it, but they kick all the sand out of it. They just get in there and kick around, and they just kick all the sand out of a container. So this is a pretty big sandbox. It's probably, a couple of feet wide by 3 feet across. So it's pretty good size, but it works great. Let's see. Albert says, my quail food ran low while my son was watching them, and they quit laying. Yeah, they'll do that if they get stressed out, and the lack of food would definitely stress them out. They'll pick right back up, though. Don't stress about that. Just, get them fed again and keep them fed. They'll pick right back up. Give them a week, maybe 2 at the most, and they'll pick right back up to laying. S.O. Swanson says, I use 1/4-inch hardware cloth to sift the sand to filter the poop. It gets most of it. Yeah, this the screen that it's like window screen. It's very fine, but the sand falls through most of it. Some of it doesn't, but the really fine stuff falls through, and it gets all the quail manure. So it works great. I just put it in a bucket or in the wheelbarrow or whatever, take it to the compost pile. Dark Angel Wisp says, my 3-week-old chicken has a swollen bottom. I cleaned it with warm water, then put antibiotic ointment on it. Yeah, that sounds like pasty butt. Yeah, you're going to have to probably clean it multiple times. That's just the way it goes. It gets, manure gets caked up on there, and it doesn't let the other manure out. So keep an eye on it. In my experience, when they get those, it's a little bit difficult to, it doesn't just clear up just like that. It takes a little bit of time, and you're probably going to have to clean it a couple of times. Just keep an eye on it and make sure, it's not having any problems going to the bathroom or anything like that, and it should recover. It should be okay. Happy Homestead says, hey, Chris, running very late here. Can I put my 2.5-week-old quail in with full grown, or should I wait a week and a half? They're feathered out. If they're ready to go outside, throw them in with your birds. I find I wouldn't wait too long. We talked about this just a little bit earlier, actually, but you're late, so you missed it. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. Being late's no problem. I don't mind readdressing it. Where was I going with that? Okay, so what I find is that I move 2-week old, 2.5, even up to 3 weeks old quail in with the adult birds, and it works out great. Every time I've done it, I haven't had any issues with aggression, the roosters trying to breed the young hens or anything like that. They've been just fine. They've integrated right in with the flock, no problems. That's the way I do it now every time. Don't wait till they get too old, because the closer they get to sexual maturity, the closer they get to being looked at as invading the when you put them in there, the other birds see them as adult birds, and they'll see them as invading their territory, and then you're likely to get some aggressive problems with them attacking them, or the roosters wanting to breed them before it's time to breed, that kind of stuff going on. So yeah, 2.5 to 3 weeks old is perfect timing. I wouldn't let them get over 4 to 5 weeks old at the most, because then you're going to run into some aggression problems probably. But that's been my experience with them. Oh, where are we going? Andy Rabbit says, as a pet rabbit, bucks make better pets. Yeah, my experience has always been the bucks are the ones that tend to be a little friendlier, a little easier to deal with. But these silver foxes, even the does, are not hard to deal with. They're pretty mellow. The bucks are, granted, the bucks are more friendly. They're friendlier. They're a little bit more attention seeking, I guess. But yeah, the silver foxes in general are pretty easy to deal with. Bless with Pets says, okay, well, right now I have them in a rabbit cage, and I just don't know that I would trust letting them fly outside. There are just so many risks. I just kind of want them in a large-ish aviary where they, and then there's more to that somewhere, where they can have a space to fly and hopefully reproduce. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about getting them to reproduce. I think pigeons only lay like once a year and only a couple of eggs. So you're going to have to look into that and research that a little bit. But that should be able to work. I know they pair up. They'll have breeding pairs. They don't, I believe they like doves, and they basically are a dove anyway. They mate for life, so to speak. So they're not like a quail where you put one rooster in with multiple hens. I believe they pair up, and that's the breeding pair. And it doesn't matter how many other birds are around. Those are the only two. I mean, they're going to breed with each other and only each other, kind of thing. So I don't know if that helps. I don't know what that does actually, but yeah, you could definitely build them a kind of a higher aviary, maybe a 6-7 foot tall one where they can have a little bit of room. It doesn't have to be huge, but gives them a little bit of room to at least fly up and down and around. If you are going to let them out, don't do that for a while. You're going to want to go several weeks before you let them out of the hutch. If you're going to let them out, let them establish, that this is home. All right, where are we at here? Jacob says, for your rabbits, do you buy a commercial feed or do you get your feed from a mill? What's a good feed for meat rabbits? I just started going to a mill the next town over, and the chickens love it. Yeah, I buy my quail. It's a commercial feed. It's produced by a mill here. I mean, all commercial feed is produced by a feed mill, but I think all of it is anyway. But I get it from a local feed store, but it's not produced by that feed store. Now, my quail food I typically get from a feed mill that produces it themselves. But the rabbit feed is just as cheap and it's just as good. Most of your rabbit feeds are going to be primarily alfalfa based, with other things added in. As far as one being better than the other, try to go with something at least 16% protein. You don't need to go super high. I like to go anywhere from 16 to 19%, somewhere right around in there. And that's really it. I mean, if it says rabbit food feed on it, it's going to be a decent feed. You don't have to worry about, really trying to search through the ingredient list or anything like that too much. It's going to be fine. I don't have the one I get is, I can't even remember the name of the people that produce it, but it's made here in Missouri. So I don't know that it's available everywhere. But it's just the feed that's available at my local feed store. Blessed with, we already read that one. Jacob says, if anyone has any recipe for rabbit feed from a mill, please share. I like knowing where the food comes from and what's in it. I couldn't give you an exact recipe, like how to mix it. I mean, your mill should know, the feed mill should know what to put in rabbit feed, I would think. If not, they're probably not a very reputable mill. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what your situation is exactly. And how to, I just don't know. I don't know what to tell you exactly. I'm sorry about that. Dawn's talking to Happy Homestead, says, I have 3-week-old quail, and when they get to 4 weeks, I'm going to introduce their grandmothers to them and see if the old hens accept them by going into their cage. Okay. Dark Angel says, first time with chickens, one has a swollen bottom. I think I already addressed that, didn't I? I think I did. It just probably took me some time, so that's why you're asking again. If not, ask again. We'll go over it again. Bob Cold says, I have a wood mill close to me. I get bags of sawdust for trays on the outside hutches. That would work pretty well, I would think. Maybe it might get kind of, I mean, it's just in the dropping trays. It's not, the quail aren't in direct contact with it. The thing I would worry about with using like sawdust, and for that matter, a lot of wood chips on a permanent basis, is that you add manure to wood, and they start breaking down and they produce heat. So if your quail are directly on them, that might be a little bit of an issue. But if they're just in the hutches, that'd be fine. I would also worry about sawdust. Would be you don't want to use that as a bedding for the quail to be directly on, because it would probably, first of all, it's a little dusty and that's not good. Dusty is not good around birds. But also, if it gets wet at all, it tends to cake up and get very hard. So that may not be really good. Andy Rabbit says, blessed with pets. I was told not to let them free until after they raise babies. Before they do, they don't see it as home. I always thought, everything I've seen on it says like it takes like 30 days or something. I didn't see anything about until after they raise babies, but you could be right there too. Vay's Place says, to Dark Angel, sounds like it's either about to lay an egg or maybe prolapse. Probably not, because she's talking about a young chicken, I believe. Am I missing? Did I get that mixed up? I may not have, but I thought she was the one that said that it's a 3-week-old chicken that's having this issue. So that wouldn't be anywhere near egg laying for a chicken. But maybe maybe I misunderstood. Maybe that's what it is. Indeed, you could be right. Blessed with Pets says, I don't understand what I did wrong with quail. Bought 12 and got down to 4. Then I bought 14 more from the same person about a month ago. And now I don't have a single live quail. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. I don't know. Without seeing your setup and how things were going, it's hard for me to really address it. It sounds like there's either some kind of, assuming you've got them in fairly good cages, you're giving them plenty of food and water, you're not putting them out like in the direct sunlight all day or something like that. It sounds like there's probably either some kind of bacterial issue, like a virus or something going around maybe. Or it could, it's got to be something environmental. I just don't know what it is. It's hard for me to pinpoint that. Spider Rivas says, hello to everyone. Hello to you too. How are we doing on time? We got about 20 minutes left, so we're doing okay. Dupree's Homestead says, I use sand in the brooder, can sift clean and holds heat. There you go. I think that would work just great. Oh, no, I scrolled too far. All right, let's see. Spider Eva says, I'm glad I am in time to catch some of the live chat. Well, I'm glad you are too. We're glad you're here. Happy Homestead says, thank you. LOL. Okay, you're welcome. I don't know what the laugh's for, but I think it's thank you. TY, isn't that thank you? Anyway. Dark Angel says, can you use peroxide or rubbing alcohol on their bottoms? I wouldn't use peroxide or rubbing alcohol, honestly. Just a warm, damp cloth, Epsom salt bath would be okay if you need to soak. But I wouldn't use peroxide. Peroxide can be very, it's not caustic, but it can damage tissue. It's probably not the best to use. If you are going to use an antibiotic ointment, like if there's an infection you need to get under control, use one that doesn't have a pain reliever in it. Pain relievers can be toxic to your animals. But I would stay away from, JJ Willow saying the same thing. That sounds painful. Use warm water with Epsom salt. Yeah, I can't imagine alcohol for that matter. Yeah. Oh, that does sounds hideous. But anyway, but yeah, that would be my suggestion. Spider Eva says, slightly rednecked, I finally got my first flock of quails. Well, awesome. Congratulations on that. Hopefully they are doing well. See, Bob Cole says, Chris, I have 5 in a grow-out hutch, 3 weeks old. Can I put them in the same hutch as their parents? This is a common question tonight. Maybe I need to shoot another video on this, like the third time we've had it asked. I don't know if you heard the last answer to that question or not, but I'll address it again just in case. So yes, 3-week-old quail, you can definitely move them in with their parents. Try to do it before they get too much older. So what I usually do, I move them 2.5 weeks old, up to 3 weeks. I move them right into the hutch with their adults. That's how I replace my breeders. I take the babies at about 2 weeks when they're ready to go outside, and they go right in the hutch with the adults. And then as they grow up, as they start getting closer to producing eggs of their own, I process all the adults in that cage and leave some of them behind to be my breeders, my future breeders. But I've had really good luck doing that and haven't had any issues with aggression or any of those kinds of things. Now, if they get a little bit older, if they start getting pretty close to sexual maturity, 5 to 6 weeks old, it's a little bit different. When you put them in there, they tend to be seen as intruders on the territory, and the other birds do tend to get aggressive with them and pick on them and can do some pretty good damage to them. But 3 weeks old, younger, 4 weeks old, probably. My experience has primarily been with 2 to 3 at the most. I try not to go too much over that. But yes, you can definitely move them in. They should be fine. That's the way to do it. Dark Angel says, I figured, then after wash it, use antibiotic ointment. Yeah, you can. I mean, unless it's infected, you probably don't need to use antibiotic ointment. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to do. When I've had issues with like pasty butt, I just clean it off with some warm, warm, damp cloth. Soak it a little bit if you need to loosen things up and get it going. But that's it. I don't use any kind of antibiotic ointment on them, but you can. That's okay. Again, don't use one with pain reliever in it. Luis says, one of my hens doesn't let my rooster mate with him. Just gets chased and pecked, but never mate. So interesting. So I don't know how you're sure it never happens. I mean, you're not watching them all the time, so maybe it does happen from time to time, but it's not uncommon for the hens to sometimes run from the roosters and try to avoid them. Some hens are a little bit more receptive than other hens, but I've never had issues that I know of anyway, where I've had one hen that just never got bred. But I don't know what advice to give you on that. Unless it's becoming a big issue, I don't know that I'd worry about it. JJ Willow says, Epsom salt does also help with pain for a little while. Yeah, I imagine it would. Blessed with Pets says, yeah, I have one proven pair and a younger pair. I bought all 4 for $50 total. All of your pigeons, huh? Congratulations. I've thought about getting pigeons. I just need to build some cages for them. So Vase Place says to me, slightly rednecked, Big Mama had 3 pups. Well, awesome. Congratulations on that. Let's see. Dawn's talking to Bob Cole, says, I would put my 3-week-olds in because they are less than half the size of the adults. Oh, says, I would not put my 3-week-olds in because they're less than half the size of the adults. I figure next week they will be half the size of the adults. Yeah, I've never had a problem. I've done 2-week-old birds in with my adults, and they just accept them right in, no problems. So it's never been a problem for me. That's the way I prefer to do it. Don says, it was 95 here in Illinois today. Yeah, that's a little warm. We still haven't turned our air conditioner on here because it's not been that bad. It's been, I think today was 87 maybe, which is really not that bad, especially when it's getting down in the 60s at night and cooling off. It's fine. We had 58 degrees the other night for the low. Spider Reva says, thanks. I do have a lot of questions. How do you get rid of the damn flies? I'm not sure what the birds is being. Oh, I'm not sure what of the bird is being a bully. Can I give some veggies? Okay. That's multiple questions in one. Let's see if I can get these addressed. So what do you do about the flies? That's a common problem I think a lot of people talk about. I don't have huge issues with flies. You can look at sending out fly traps for them. They make these like in a bag, basically, that you hang up, you fill with water about halfway, and it draws the flies in. How much of an impact that makes, I don't know, because I don't have as big of a problem with flies as other people do. And if you have a huge problem, It may not be it may not work that well. I don't have a big problem, mostly because I get black soldier flies that move in, and I get black soldier fly larvae in my my manure piles, and that drives all the flies away. They compost that thing down, and they eat all the eggs or the larvae or whatever, but it drives the flies away. So if I did have a big problem with flies, what I would probably look at is getting fly predators. You can look that up online, fly predators. It's a insect of some kind. You can order them, and you just hang that up out there, and it goes after their larvae. They're not black soldier fly, but it's some other kind of bug that goes specifically after fly larvae. So I think that would work pretty well. As far as you're not sure what of the bird is being a bully. So if you've got one bird that's bullying the other birds, you're just gonna have to watch and see if you can pick out which one it is. That's the easiest way, or the best way probably, to identify it. You might try moving them around a little bit, putting them in a new hutch or something like that if you have the ability to do that. That might, new surroundings might kind of calm them all down a little bit. You may not have one bird that's being a bully. It may be multiple. And if you're fairly new to this, you may be mistaking bullying or breeding behavior for bullying. If what you're seeing is missing feathers on the back of their head, that's breeding. That's not bullying. If what you're seeing is pecking around the face, that's when you're going to look at bullying. Whenever they have like missing feathers around their face, their eyes are swollen up because they've been pecked in the face and the eye area, that kind of thing. That's what you see with bullying usually. Like right now, I've got a bunch of birds with missing feathers on their backs, but that's molting. That's not bullying behavior. So I don't know if that helps at all. Maybe it does. And can you give them some veggies? You can give them some veggies. It shouldn't be a main part of their diet, but it can definitely be a little bit of their diet. I did a video a while back. It's been a long time ago about what vegetables you can feed to your quail. Don't feed them nightshade plants. That'd be like tomato plant, pepper plant, potato plant. The fruit is okay. I don't think potatoes are particularly good for them, but I don't think it's that bad. You can feed them some tomato, cucumbers. I don't know that they'd eat peppers, but you could try to feed them peppers, I suppose. Stay away from avocado. Don't feed iceberg lettuce. Don't feed iceberg lettuce to anything. It's just terrible for them. There's a whole bunch of things that you can feed them. Just a very small list you can't. Look up. You're probably going to have a hard time finding like what you can't feed quail online, but you can find what you can't feed chickens and just kind of follow that guideline. It should be pretty similar for quail. Hopefully that gets your questions answered. Andy Rabbit says H&S feed, Chris. I think that's it. H&S feed is what I use for rabbit feed. I believe you're right. Yeah, JJ Willow saying the same thing for Dark Angel. Make sure the antibiotic ointment does not have a pain reliever. Everyone says that it's poisonous to quail. It is, in most animals, not just quail. Happy Homestead says, yeah, it's toasty. Tornadoes south of me in Texas and Oklahoma. Soupy weather for sure. It hadn't been that bad here. We've had a pretty mild so far. I mean, it's supposed to get up in the 90s this weekend. We'll probably turn the air conditioner on. But until then, it's not that bad in the house. It's really, it gets a little bit warm by the end of the day, but then it cools off at night. Bianca says, hey, Chris, one of my 5 to 6 week old quails has lost the ability to stand. It lays down with its legs straight out. Any ideas what could have caused it? I've never seen this with my past quail. Okay. A couple of things that I think, I got distracted. A couple of things that come to mind here. One is it could be problems with their leg or their feet problems. Look at the pads of their feet. Make sure they don't have what they call bumblefoot, which is basically it's a staph infection. So you should be able to tell if that's what it is. Probably. You're looking, like, if you look at the pads of their feet and there's a small wound that's really swollen up, that's bumblefoot. And to treat that, you need to kind of open that up, drain that wound, get out whatever is in there, like to have a piece of sand, a splinter, something like that that's inside that wound. Clean that out, and that it should heal up over time. It could be some kind of leg issue sometimes every once in a while, especially if your birds get incredibly big. They can just have leg issues, and that may be it. It could be a neurological issue, like did it get spooked, fly up, hit its head? something like that. There's a lot of different things it could be. It's hard for me to narrow it down to just one and what exactly to do with it. Lays down with its legs straight out. That's odd. Might give it a couple of days and see how it does. Make sure it's getting up and, if it's getting to food and getting to water and that kind of stuff. If it's not, I might consider culling it, but that's just me. Give it a couple of days, see how it does. If it starts acting real lethargic, like doesn't even want to lift its head up or anything like that, there's probably something seriously wrong and you need to call that bird. Orlando or Rosa, wait, I can't read that. Orisco, I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry, I got it wrong probably. But anyway, says, hello, just started watching. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate that. Hopefully you're getting whatever information you need out of it. SO says, welcome, Orlando. If you have any questions about quail, rabbits, chickens, gardens, Chris knows it all and at least points you in the right direction. I don't know everything. I don't pretend to know everything. But if I don't know, I can usually give you some recommendations. Sundial Fragrances is here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We're about out of time. You guys kind of got here a little bit late. We got about 5 minutes left. Let's see. Bob says quail on wire floors, automotive pans 3 inches below that. When it gets full, I dump it in the compost bin. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Sounds like you got a plan there. Vay's Place says, you were correct, Chris, not me. I didn't read the age of the hen. Oh, yeah, no problem. It happens. I read things wrong all the time, and it could have been me for sure. Sujak says, but do avoid medicated feed. I don't know if that's in response to something, but you don't have to. Medicated feed's okay. It's not that bad, honestly, especially for young birds. You don't need it. It's not something that you absolutely have to do. But if you get medicated feed and that's all you can get for your birds, it's not that big of a deal. The medicated feed, I think, is a little bit of there's a misconception on that. A lot of people think that it's like antibiotics and things. It's not. It's a thiamine blocker. And it's a thiamine blocker to prevent coccidiosis is what it is. So, I don't know that I would want to feed medicated feed on a permanent basis to animals I was going to end up processing, but the FDA swears that it's safe, but, take that for what it's worth. But the point is, hey, Max, quit. Sorry. My dog is licking his feet. He's got some allergy problems. I had to get him to stop because he licks them raw if we don't. Where was I? Medicated feed. Okay, so yeah, it's not that big of a deal if you're going to feed a bag of medicated feed to your birds, and that's the one time you feed it to them. Don't worry about it. It's okay. It's not that big a deal. Orlando says, happy Father's Day to all. Yeah, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Big Hoss Gun says, just had my first quail hatch of quail and just had my first hatch of quail. There we go. Had 21 out of 25 eggs hatch. Well, that's fantastic. Well done. You did well. Congratulations, by the way. Blessed with Pets says, I have them under a metal cover with a 2-foot by 3-foot wire rabbit cage with 2 waters and 2 feeders and kept them full. Fed 30% protein game bird crumble, and I never got an egg. What did you change the floor out, or are you using standard rabbit cage flooring? Because those holes are too big. They can't walk on those comfortably, and you're gonna end up with like leg problems and things like that. And that may be the issue. You need to change that floor out with a little bit of a smaller, not a smaller gauge, but a smaller square, if that makes sense. I missed something, didn't I? Oh, I don't know what was going on there. There's some other discussion. Don't have time to catch up on it. Happy Homestead says, Chris, do you think it matters what time of day I add them to the coop, evening or broad daylight? We're talking about the young birds, right? Like 2-3 week old or something like that. I don't think it matters. You could do it in the evening because night's coming and that gives them more time to adjust. I don't know that it matters that much. I don't know that I've paid that much attention to when I do it. I probably generally do it in the morning because that's when I'm most active. I get up and go get all my chores done. But I don't know that it matters. Dawn says, Chris, I'm waiting until this weekend to move my 3.5-week-old quail, or my 3.5-week-olds on the weekend when the hens, because I just called their roo last week and they're still calling for him. Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. You can do that. I don't know that it would make a big difference, but do it anyway. It's fine. You can. Luis says, do you have rollout cages? No, I do not. I did at one time. I made some. I didn't like them because they sit at an angle in order to get the eggs to roll. It's really not that hard for me to open the hutch and get the eggs out. It's not that big. I'm not running that many birds, so it's not that big of a deal. And what I didn't like about those cages like that is if I put feeders inside, everything you put in the cage ends up at the front of the cage, right there by the door. I mean, everything, because it's sitting at an angle. Maybe not that drastic, but sitting at an angle. So I just didn't like them. That's just my personal opinion or personal preference, though. Really, that's all. I know, Zach at Myshire Farm, he uses rollout cages and, he loves them, but he's got tons of birds, collecting that many eggs every day. It makes a difference, but I'm just collecting from one hutch, right now, only about 6 or 7 eggs a day. At the most I'm getting a dozen a day. It's not that big a deal to open the cage up and get everything out. It just seems for my situation to work better not to have them. Happy Homestead says, you must be Southern born and raised, Chris. I've had AC on for a month, mid-Missouri, outside Fort Leonard Wood. Yeah, that's not very far from me. That's we got pretty much the same. Yeah, Fort Leonard Wood's right up by Lebanon, right? I think it is. Right outside of that. Anyway, that's not that far. Just a couple hour drive, hour and a half, something like that. But I was raised right here in Southwest Missouri. But I spent a lot of time outside in the summertime, and I just you get acclimated to it. But it hasn't been that hot. I mean, the hottest we've gotten is like 88, during the day. And it also helps. My wife and I are both working during the day most days. So I'm not getting home till 7:30 at night. And, it's a little warm in the house, but we got a couple of fans we turn on, put right by us, open up the doors and the windows. By morning, it's a little chilly. It's actually pretty nice. So it's really not that big of a deal. And a big part of the reason why I haven't turned the air conditioner on, I mean, that part of it is because it's not been that big of a deal. The other part is I've got an inverter out of my solar system. I'm waiting on it to be replaced. I don't want my bill to be $400 next month because I'm running the air conditioner. But that's not the only reason. I could deal with it if we needed it. Rick says, can you keep just males together without females? You can, but I don't know that it's a great idea. You're probably going to end up with some aggression problems, birds trying to mate other birds, and especially if they're just coming of age. Probably not a great idea. Keep them together for a little while. If they're meat birds, there's no reason to. Just process all your roosters. If you need to, you can probably advertise them for free. If you're just wanting to, separate them out and let somebody else deal with them, you can do that. Dark Angel says, my bird is almost bald all the way down her back. Can I use baby oil? Are we talking about a chicken now? That sounds like molting behavior to me. I don't know that I guess you could use some baby oil on them, but you probably don't need to. I mean, it's just natural behavior. Make sure you're giving them fairly high protein and they'll grow those feathers back. But I don't know. Andy wants to know, why would a 3-week-old quail be bald on their back below their wings? Oh, it could be a number of different things. It's possible for them to start molting that early, probably unlikely, but it's possible. And it could be that. I doubt that it's aggression unless you're running like a really low protein feed and you've got feather plucking going on, but because feathers are high in protein. So if your protein levels are really, really low, when I say really low, like 15%, for quail, something like that, then your birds may be looking for protein in other areas and plucking feathers from the other birds. But that's the only thing I could think of. Other than that, it could be just molting behavior. Sometimes they molt really young for whatever weird reason. All right, guys, I got to wrap this one up. We're past time and it's getting late. So there's a lot of comments I didn't get to. Sorry about that. Sorry, I got to quit looking at the comments. I'll keep talking and I got to get off here. We haven't had dinner or anything. So I got to wrap it up, guys. We'll be back next week as far as I know. And I don't see any reason why not. Hopefully we'll see you guys then. If I didn't get to your comment tonight, I apologize for that. But hopefully we'll get to it next week. Unfortunately, it's that time of day. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. Always great to hang out with you for a little while. And we'll see you guys next week. As always, God bless.